So time now to take a more detailed look at the front pages now. With me this morning to review the papers are the anthropologist Marianne Hotter and the entrepreneur Kate Hardcastle. So a very good morning to both of you. Lovely to see you bright and early this morning. A lot of politics on the front pages of this morning's papers, aren't there? Let's kick off with, let's go for a couple of them actually, Marianne, to begin with. We've got The Observer and The Sunday People with a kind of similar message, really, haven't we? The Observer, voters abandon Tories as faith in economic competence dives, and The Sunday People with a similar kind of feel, you've lost their trust, Liz. So starting off this Tory party conference, Marianne, Liz Truss has got some awkward headlines.
Yes, that's right. But that said, I think going into your party conference with all this, really opinion polls will be more relevant in a week's time or so, when the dust has settled, when she's had numerous platforms along with the rest of her cabinet to lay out some more of this detail, because I think that's one of the reasons that people feel so nervous, perhaps, if the figures are to be believed, feel like they ought to jump ship very quickly. So the Observer has run an opinion poll. 75% of people believe that Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng have lost control, quote, lost control of the economy, including 75% of people who voted Conservative in the last election. But, Anna, these figures are extraordinary. The Observer has them in this same poll with the Labour 46%. If the question always stands as, if there were a general election tomorrow, who would you vote for? 46% of people say that they would vote for Labour. Only 27% would vote for Conservative. So that's a 19-point lead. Other opinion polls this week have set that difference even higher, up to 30-odd%. The thing is, there's not a general election tomorrow, and however much you go, well, they're only in for 2 years, at this rate of extraordinary change or revolutionary approach to resetting the economy, as Liz Truss has said, a lot happens. A lot has happened in a week for sure. In 2 years' time, it's going to be a completely different ballgame. But I think one of underlying concerns is that there's this veil of secrecy. Kwasi Kwarteng said, there's going to be more revealed, more rabbits pulled out of the hat in November. That is not a way to alleviate concerns of the market or of the British people.
Well, yes, and let's take in the Sunday Telegraph headline, shall we, next, Kate, because this is Liz Truss doing an interview with the Sunday Telegraph saying, I'm sticking to my plan, it is the right plan. She's saying it's all about growth and we had to make some tough decisions. Do you think this is the way to turn people's opinions around, by explaining? Is that what needs to be done, or does there need to be some backing down on some of the less popular policies?
There always needs to be explanation, and you're quite right to point out that this story talks very much about Liz saying the status quo wasn't, Liz Truss, our Prime Minister, saying that the status quo wasn't acceptable, we had to change things, and this is a growth plan, and she's sticking to it. And I've been up and down the country this week talking to many people. I wanted to get the real understanding of what the zeitgeist was, what people were feeling, particularly as well, strong Conservative Hall voters, understanding how they feel. For me, what an economy needs isn't just growth, it's about participation. So it's about people feeling they've got a greater say. It's about stability. It's about making sure it is growing, yes, but it's equitable. So it's fair for all and sustainable. And for me, confidence breeds confidence. And you're going to have an economy that rallies when people feel good. I feel that so far we've had, yes, a very small amount of time for Miss Truss to be enrolled, but my goodness me, do people feel that she's come out and reassured, given that confidence for them to spend, given that confidence that they're going to be okay? I've not heard those messages. The people I'm speaking to haven't heard those messages. So I think you can go on with your kind of ideological strong and wrong, I'm going to keep saying this until people understand it's the way forward, but there has to be a tipping point of an amount of people who agree with you and wholeheartedly back you on that, and that doesn't seem to be the case, as we've just heard from Marianne on the polls as well.
Well, yes, and Marianne, the problem is, isn't it, that you may be able to say this will bring growth in future, this is what we believe, and then everyone will benefit. But when people see markets reacting, and that actually does impact them, when they see that mortgages are taken off the market and the prospect of higher interest rates, which will affect their pocket, that's what people are going to be influenced by more, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then these suggestions that all this £45 billion effectively unfunded tax cut that, you know, it's been reported across the week that it disproportionately benefits the wealthy. The kind of suggestion that's trickling out is that actually the way they're going to make these books balance, the way that they're going to ensure this low tax economy is by reducing spending. But what does that actually look like? Is that genuinely reducing people's benefits as we're in a cost of living crisis, going into a winter where people are genuinely worried about how to heat their homes? Is it reducing public pay where you've got a kind of a full employment economy and nurses are leaving the NHS in droves? Is it reducing or writing off infrastructure investment projects? And given the kind of the optics of removing the banker's bonus cap, removing this 45% income tax rate, you kind of look at it and you think, well, who do these policies benefit in the short term? It's all well and good, as Kate says. In the long term, there's this kind of economic ideology that sees a low tax, high growth, low state, structure, which, whether politically you agree with that or not, it sort of has in internal coherence and logic, perhaps. I don't agree with it, but the thing is, to get to there, who's going to suffer the most? The people who are already suffering. And politicians can't work like that. I mean, we have a democratic system. If the whole country is feeling unacceptable levels of pain, then it doesn't work. You need those support mechanisms, and Kate says you need confidence and you need equity in order for this growth plan to work, and that's the bit of the puzzle that I really feel like they've totally missed, and it suggests that they just don't really care because they haven't come out and reassured this week. They've sort of doubled down.
Well, yeah.
And kind of denied the reality of people's experiences of having their mortgages pulled and worrying about their pensions.
Yeah, what do you make about how this has been handled, Kate? Because this weekend we've had a couple of articles, we've had op-eds, as they call them, people, the politicians themselves writing for a newspaper explaining themselves. That's come about this weekend, but that's a week after the mini-budget. Do you think that the comms on this, if you like, have been bad?
Yeah, I mean, and tokenism. The Prime Minister did the regional radio ring rounds, and I listened to a lot of those stations and interviews, and she was fairly challenged on them all. And yes, there were some points made, but this is a long-term strategy in the main and only going to benefit a small amount of people in the short term. And we've got so many questions. It's not as if when that podium posturing exercise that seemed to go on forever, Liz Truss and Rishi were not completely clear on what the job was at hand. It was always going to be a bit of a poison chalice. But surely you come out with an emotional intelligence at this time that's going to reassure people using food banks, scared of their energy bills, worried about going into NHS for postponed appointments if it's actually going to crack, and not give them the appointment they've so long waited. And understanding more than anything where we've all come from. This isn't a case that we've not just had. So we've had 3 years of challenges. COVID, of course, the extreme situation with the Ukraine war. We have just gone from pillar to post. So you imagine being a small business owner, of which there are 5 million in the UK, trying to then work out how you're going to fight this latest battle of heating your business. And it's no wonder that people have just got their head in the hands, sadly.
Okay, and Kate, I want to move on, stay on the subject of Liz Truss, but turn to the Sunday Times. I know this is an article that you had picked out. Their headline is Truss advised King to stay away from climate summit. This is COP27 in November, isn't it?
Well, this is exactly it. And there's the suggestion that Ms Truss, the Prime Minister, has said, no, I'm sorry, you can just take a back step to the King because the people around her do not perhaps want a big spectacle there. And there's even suggestions in this article that perhaps that's because she will be taking a lower profile at the summit, or indeed no profile at the summit, which is quite the contrast to where we were in COP26 in Glasgow, where, if you might remember, Boris Johnson was given a speech about, this James Bond of our time, and everything was going to be mended and remedied. And we talk about the long-term strategies of the party, and we're trying to see from both angles. Maybe are they doing something financially where they are working on initiatives that are going to benefit the country down the road? Potentially. We're still not seeing the devil in the detail, but sustainability has to be a major part of that. And why would you take a back step at the huge conference required for us to attend to explain, update other nations in terms of where we are on sustainability and where those efforts have gotten to? I think every nation there will have gone through the pain point of COVID, etc., fuel prices, but the suggestion that we might not be visible there, how's that going to put us on an international stage? And that matters financially with the economy too. Head blown, to be honest.
Oh, interesting. It'll be interesting to see what their plans are on that score when they do lay them out, won't it? And then, Marianne, the Sunday Mirror goes with a very different angle. In fact, I don't think there's any cost of living or kind of politics-related stories on their front page. Their main story focuses on Ukraine, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's clearly an editorial decision around the table at the Mirror offices, obviously going, are people a bit overwhelmed by this? Should we give them something else? And they agreed that they would. They've got a bit of Strictly at the top, but the story that they've chosen to put on the front page isn't particularly uplifting. So this is the story of Paul Uri, who is a man from Warrington who went out as to help in Ukraine. And he was detained at a border checkpoint by Russian separatists in Donetsk, and subsequently died. The details of how that happened aren't yet clear, and his body is to be repatriated. But he's survived by two daughters, Courtney and Chelsea, and you can see them being hugged by one of the fellow hostages who came home.
I'm going to have to rush you. Sorry, Marianne, we're nearly out of time.
He was released and kind of brought back a message that their father loved him, loved them, and was trying to do good work in Ukraine.
Very powerful. We're out of time. I'll see you again next hour. Thank you.